Hey there, Ruthhaven Grounds family. Today I'm sharing something that sounds absolutely wild but works like absolute magic in my garden. We're talking about plain old rice, yes, the stuff sitting in your pantry right now, and how it can transform your soil into a thriving ecosystem practically overnight. I stumbled upon this technique almost by accident, and now I'm convinced it's one of the most powerful tools in my gardening arsenal. If you've been following along on this journey with me, you know I'm all about working smarter, not harder, and letting nature do the heavy lifting. This rice trick does exactly that, and I'm excited to break down exactly why it works, and how you can start using it today to create soil so alive, it practically hums with activity. Let me paint you a picture of what happens when you introduce cooked rice into your garden soil or compost system. Rice is essentially a carbohydrate bomb. It's packed with starches that soil microorganisms absolutely devour. When these beneficial bacteria and fungi start breaking down the rice, they multiply at an explosive rate, creating a microbial feast that attracts every beneficial organism in the vicinity. Here's where it gets really interesting. As these microbes go to work on the rice, they generate heat and release nutrients in forms that are immediately available to plants, but more importantly, they release chemical signals that attract worms from deep in the soil and even from neighboring areas. I've seen worm populations triple in treated areas within just 2 weeks. It's like ringing a dinner bell that every earthworm in your garden can hear. The breakdown process also creates the perfect environment for beneficial nematodes, protozoa, and countless other microscopic helpers that make soil truly alive. These organisms form complex food webs that cycle nutrients, improve soil structure, and protect your plants from diseases. You're essentially kick-starting an entire ecosystem with something as simple as leftover rice. The application method is refreshingly simple, but there are some important details that make all the difference between good results and absolutely spectacular ones. I've experimented with various approaches over the past few growing seasons, and I've refined this down to what works best. Start with plain cooked rice. White or brown both work beautifully, though I've found white rice breaks down slightly faster. Avoid rice with oils, butter, or seasonings, as these can actually inhibit the microbial activity you're trying to encourage. If you have leftover rice from dinner, perfect. If not, cook up a small batch specifically for your garden. About 1 cup of cooked rice per square yard of garden bed is a good starting point. The key is to bury the rice rather than leaving it on the surface. Dig small holes or trenches about 4 to 6 inches deep and tuck the rice into these pockets, then cover it back up with soil. This keeps it away from rodents and other critters, while putting it right in the zone where root activity and soil life are most concentrated. I like to space these rice pockets about 12 inches apart across my beds. For compost bins or worm farms, the approach is slightly different. Mix the rice throughout your compost layers or scatter it across the surface of your worm bin bedding. The worms will find it within hours, and you'll notice increased activity almost immediately. Just make sure your compost system has good moisture levels. The rice should be damp but not waterlogged. Within days of applying rice to your soil, you'll start noticing something remarkable. The worm population doesn't just increase gradually, it seems to explode. I've dug into treated areas after a week and found more worms in a single shovelful than I'd typically see in an entire bed. This happens because worms are attracted to areas of high microbial activity. As the rice decomposes, it creates a hotspot of bacterial and fungal growth that worms can sense from surprising distances. They migrate toward these areas to feed on both the decomposing rice and the microorganisms breaking it down. It's a win-win situation where the worms get an incredible food source, and your soil gets aerated and enriched by their tunneling activity. The castings that worms produce as they consume this rice-enriched soil are phenomenal. They're loaded with nutrients in plant-available forms, beneficial microbes, and enzymes that continue improving soil health long after the rice itself has disappeared. I've measured significant increases in nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium levels in areas where I've used this technique consistently. Like most gardening techniques, timing matters with the rice trick. I've found that the best results come from applying rice when soil temperatures are between 60 and 80 degrees Fahrenheit. This is when microbial activity is most vigorous and worms are most active. In my zone, this means spring and fall applications work exceptionally well, while summer applications can be effective if you ensure adequate moisture. For established gardens, I recommend treating your beds once every 4 to 6 weeks during the growing season. This maintains consistent microbial activity without overloading the system. In new beds or areas where you're trying to build soil life from scratch, you can start with applications every 2 to 3 weeks for the first couple of months, then taper back to the maintenance schedule. Before planting new seedlings, I like to treat the bed about 2 weeks in advance. This gives the rice time to start breaking down and the microbial population time to boom, creating ideal conditions for transplants. The increased worm activity also ensures your soil structure is in prime condition, with excellent drainage and aeration. The changes happen faster than you might expect. Within the first week, if you dig into the treated area, you'll notice the soil feels different. It's more crumbly, less compacted, and often slightly warmer due to microbial activity. By week 2, the worm population increase becomes obvious. By week 3 or 4, the rice has typically broken down completely, leaving behind soil that's noticeably darker and richer. I keep track of my results by doing simple observations. Every few weeks I'll dig a small hole in treated versus untreated areas and count the worms I see. The difference is consistently dramatic. I also watch my plants' response. They grow more vigorously in rice-treated beds, with deeper green foliage and better disease resistance. One thing to watch for is moisture levels. The decomposition process works best when soil is consistently moist, but not soggy. In hot, dry weather, you may need to water treated areas more frequently to keep the microbial activity going strong. Over my time experimenting with this technique, I've made plenty of mistakes, so you don't have to. The biggest error I see people make is using too much rice at once. More isn't always better. Excessive amounts can create anaerobic conditions that produce foul smells and attract pests. Stick with moderate amounts and apply regularly rather than dumping large quantities all at once. Another common issue is not burying the rice deep enough. Surface applications attract rodents, possums, and other animals that will dig up your beds looking for an easy meal. Keep it buried at least 4 inches down, and you'll avoid these problems entirely. If you notice any foul odors developing, it usually means the area is too wet, or you've applied too much rice. The solution is simple. Reduce the amount in your next application and improve drainage if needed. Healthy decomposition should smell earthy and pleasant, not rotten. While the worm population explosion is the most visible result of this technique, remember that you're nurturing an entire ecosystem. The beneficial bacteria that break down the rice also suppress pathogenic organisms that cause plant diseases. The fungi that join the feast create mycorrhizal networks that help your plants access nutrients and water more efficiently. I've noticed that slug and pest problems decrease in beds where I use this technique regularly. I believe this is because healthy balanced soil ecosystems include predatory insects and nematodes that keep pest populations in check naturally. You're creating a self-regulating system that requires less intervention from you over time. The long-term impact on soil structure is equally impressive. As worm populations increase and microbial activity stays high, your soil becomes increasingly friable and well aggregated. Water penetrates more easily, roots grow more freely, and you'll find yourself needing less fertilizer because nutrients cycle more efficiently through the system. There you have it, friends. The secret rice trick that's transforming gardens all over the Root Haven Grounds community. This simple technique harnesses the power of nature's own systems to create soil that's truly alive and thriving. Give it a try in your garden and watch what happens. I guarantee you'll be amazed at the results. If you found this guide helpful, don't forget to subscribe to Root Haven Grounds for more practical science-based gardening techniques that actually work. Share this article with your fellow gardeners. Let's build healthier soil together, one garden at a time. Drop a comment and let me know your results when you try this technique. I can't wait to hear how it works in your garden.